Welcome back to the Respect the Drive podcast here at Acton, Massachusetts at Garage 42, where I store my cars. But Garage 42 is more than just car storage, it's fleet management. So if you're looking to have your own version of, say, like, I don't know, Jay Leno's garage, but you have 5, 6, 20, 30 cars and you don't have anybody to deal with them except yourself, well, you're probably in a bit of trouble. And it's all you do. But the glorious thing about Garage 42 is they're going to wash, detail, store your cars. But in addition to that, if you have an appointment at your dealership for oil changes or any little things that you just need for service items, and sometimes it's a big deal when it comes to certain cars, whether it's a Ferrari or a McLaren, you got to get that stamp in the book. Well, guess what? You don't have to be bothered with transporting your own car. They'll do the transport for you so you can continue making that money to buy more toys while your cars get appropriately serviced and don't lose value because you're servicing them yourself in your garage. Anyway, they can do some other services here as well on certain makes and models, so inquire within. Call Josh. And what else? I am sitting here with my new coaster from Grid Forge, where I also have some Nürburgring plaques and all kinds of cool tchotchkes, my key trays for my cars. I always lose my keys, but now I have these key trays that have like Honda, Porsche, BMW logos on them. And I know exactly where my stuff is at all times, and I love it. And it's also just very pleasing to look at. So if you're looking for an aesthetic gift for a friend or for yourself, check out Grid Forge. It'll be in the show notes. But I asked my buddy Mike, who works there, hey, can you get me some coasters with the Tedward logo on it? And boom, they showed up at the studio, and here we are. But today, we're here to talk 2025. It's 2025. Holy shit. I've got Eddie Siegel here from the Backseat Drivers podcast with Eddie and Devin and Eddie. A, B, C, D, E. I guess it is alphabetical.
Yeah, you're right.
Anyway, I've just spent the last few days with you anyway, and I'm glad to get you back on the mics talking about our futures.
Our
with
futures.
Our cars.
They look very bright.
And our present, because my God, it was cold today.
It wasn't that cold.
It was, because I was driving a 1954 Jaguar XK120 Roadster, and I had to review it, and I spent about, I think, probably about an hour and 45 minutes behind the wheel of that car today. And it's 30 degrees and it was very, very cold. I was happy for about an hour and 30 minutes. And then the last 10 to 15 minutes got very, very, very cold. And it was like that moment when the switch flips and you realize like, oh, I'm hypothermic. This is not good. I'm frozen to the core. And, but anyway, this was a real peach because this one is a restoration. I think Donovan Jaguars did it. Instead of that 4-speed Moss box, they put a 5-speed Tremec in it. And really transforms it.
Well, it's now drivable.
It is. And, you know, I get it when the old timers, they're like, oh, well, it's not really a Jag unless it has this unsynchronized nightmare first gear. You know what? That's fine. I enjoy those. They're fun. But the problem with those is when you're driving them in real traffic, you need to come to an absolute complete stop. You got to nudge it a little bit in a second before you go into first. It's not impossible, but it is annoying. And it's really nice to be able to kind of roll into first gear and also know that every gear and every downshift is just going to take it perfectly. Because even though you're not going to destroy the gearbox if you feel that little clip of a gear, not a whole grind, but just a little clip, sometimes it just doesn't make you feel good. It makes you feel bad.
Yeah. Speaking of that, My take on older vehicles and vehicles in general, especially on restoration or resto mods and that sort of thing, if it makes the driving experience better, and I'm not even talking about like it's faster, it's better in a corner. I'm talking about like it'll start in the cold. It'll actually work like it's intended to. I think that's totally acceptable to put a transmission in.
This is the equivalent of taking a Ferrari 360 with an F1 gearbox, making it a manual gated. That's the improvement of drivability. It literally is that much better. And,
wow.
And like it transformed the car. This car, and also Donovan did a great job on the car because even the steering was like no play. They had a smaller steering wheel so you could fit in it, which still worked fine because the argument for the giant wheel is like it's manual steering, right? There's no power steering. And so the argument for a giant wheel is always to have that leverage. But the smaller wheel, it was great. It still drove perfectly. And they put disc brakes in the front. Friggin' awesome.
So would you consider that a restoration mod.
I would just consider it a restoration. I don't know that I call it a resto mod.
It's not like a singer or anything.
No, it's because it's not that extreme. I don't think it's like an extreme thing to put a Tremec in a car like that. I've driven it before. I've driven other 120s or 140s with a Tremec in it, and I was like, oh, this is the answer.
And I bet you it's cheaper to do that than it is to find a rebuilt one of those original gearboxes, if you can even find them.
Absolutely. No, it's a whole thing. But anyway, that was the kickoff car to my 2025 season for YouTube. And I took a little bit of a break the last few weeks. I had enough of a backlog to kind of trudge through.
Yeah.
And then the last few days, I was like, oh my God, I have nothing. I was like a little like, uh-oh.
It's dry. The
It was
well
dry.
is dry.
And thankfully, I have a catalog of like, 15, 16, 1700 videos or whatever the hell it is. It still earns me a living, but you gotta keep feeding the machine. YouTube does not like.
I was gonna say Google does not like stoppages.
No, you gotta keep going. But for me, the goal this year is to just to enjoy what I'm doing, because it's funny in any job, whether you're like a friggin' computer programmer or you're a YouTuber who drives and reviews cars, you can find joy and you can find misery in whatever you do.
Of course.
I can overwork myself. I can choose the wrong projects, because there's projects I can choose that will make me so much more money, that will take me the same amount of time, if not less time, than the projects that will make me less money. And I need to be, it's always that balance of like, I got to chase some dollars, but I got to keep the machine going. And I also realize that usually when I'm having more fun, I'm making more money.
Because you invest your time and energy into that product.
Yeah.
If you're, I'm not saying these cars are bad, but if you're reviewing Toyota Camrys and Honda Accords for a month straight,
it gets old.
It gets old.
Yeah, it's also hard to find. Like, look, today, the last let's say 3-4 weeks, I think I've just been in a real rut emotionally. Like, my depression has just been like, hey, you're gonna not feel like, it's not even like,
buddy, it's fucking cold.
Yeah, and it's not even like it's more nothing and numb than sad. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
There's just not much there.
No.
And today, driving around in this little Jag in the middle of the winter really perked me up. And I was like, oh, I have joy. I still have that. That's in there. That's deep down in there. Unfortunately, it takes a $110,000 classic car to do it. But, the thing is, you're right. If I were driving like a new EV and just reviewing that right now, it's not even that I hate the EV. It's just that it would be a little joyless. And so blasting around in this straight six really just struck a nerve with me, and I loved it.
I mean, this is like every new vehicle. There's something that's missing with the newer stuff. And I'm not even talking EVs, that the old cars that you just feel one with it.
I have a question, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. The average price of a new car is astronomical. It's somewhere around, I think the average price of a car that people buy, like the average money spent, is somewhere around $50,000 in the US. That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
It's a shitload of money. And I wonder if tuner culture is going to come back in a really big way, because we now have all these cars that basically no one can afford. And if you are buying them, you might not be able to afford them either, because you're paying a 6% VIG on this shit with the crazy interest rates on cars. So does that mean that cars, like, let's say cheaper cars, or cars that are like robust enough that you could spend somewhere between like $10,000 and $20,000 and keep them going? So whether that means just maintaining and keeping them alive, or if we're going to get back into that sort of like Fast and Furious realm of like the early 2000s, where people were like, hey, like let's personalize our cars. Because really tuner culture back then was two things. One, it was street racing and going fast, but most of it was really just tchotchkes and accessories.
It was personifying yourself in your car. I don't know if we'll ever see the tuner culture of the early 2000s again, just because that was like a bubble, and that bubble has clearly passed and blown up, But that being said, the idea of having an older car seems a lot more, I wouldn't say easier to swallow, but it's a lot easier to say, all right, I have a $20,000 Kia, and it's still cheaper for me to put a new engine in it every fucking year than it is to have a, $700 car payment, and that's not including insurance and God knows what else. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is, and this happened 20 or so years ago, a little less than 20 years ago, cash for clunkers,
Yeah, a lot of that stuff went. Now, the only benefit I saw with cash for clunkers is a lot of those cars were not long for this world anyway.
No, but it ruined us. We couldn't find any of that cool stuff as high schoolers.
We saw, so now it's funny that you say that because you're right, because when I'm just old enough that like cash for clunkers, we still had some real shit boxes in my high school parking lot. But what I saw a like a mid 90s, what was it? Like a Chrysler Shadow convertible go by me the other day.
I don't even know what the fuck that is.
A Dodge Shadow, one of the Plymouth Shadow. I don't know. It's basically like a tiny, like the last generation of like K cars. I don't mean KEI, I mean K, like the letter K. Yeah. And it was just that, like, it was basically like the Chrysler version of like a Cavalier or a Sunfire, right? Like real shit boxes. Like,
so it was like that Maserati TC Chrysler LeBaron.
Yeah, that
LeBaron.
sort of look, but smaller.
Okay.
And I watched it go by Bond Group the other day, and me and this guy Eddie Schnurr, I love this guy. He's
got a great name.
I bet if the two of you collided, you'd be like, oh, this guy is the dude. Like he's got like, gray hair and a ponytail, earring, and knows he can do an engine swap on like a Porsche 356 in like 2 hours.
That's so cool.
He's the Porsche whisperer. He knows those like push rod and he knows the 4Cams too, but he knows his shit.
Knows the old stuff. Yeah.
But we were standing in the showroom talking, and we both went dead silent at the same time as this fucking Chrysler drove by, and we both went, would you look at that? Like, it was a fucking Survivor.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I guess what I'm saying is, are we going to be like this mini Cuba keeping shit alive for a while? Because I just don't see people being able to afford the shit that is out there right now.
So the big thing that also worries me is let's go not 20 years, but let's say the last 15 years. I'd say post 2010, cars have become really expensive to maintain. And therefore, a lot of them have been junked. A lot of them are gone. A lot of them have been crushed or turned into a tuna can.
There's a real sweet spot.
So what we're going to have is another cash for clunkers incident where people who are looking for cars between $10,000 and $30,000, they're going to struggle. There's not going to be much, and what is there is going to be either overinflated or so bad it's not worth paying for.
The overinflated thing is tough because we see it because we're like, oh, of course I want like a nice S2000, but like I remember when S2000s were 20 grand or 17 grand. Now they're 40 for a decent one and blah blah blah. But that also happened with like a Honda Civic. You want like I bet like a 9th gen SI is more money than you would expect. I bet that's likely too much money for what you would get.
I'm fairly certain the 8th gen is the same price that I paid for it. 10 years ago.
100%.
So,
and good luck finding a nice 8th gen. You got to go and bring a trailer and you're going to spend 20 grand on it.
They're gone.
They're gone. So this is the thing. The sweet spot, I think, is going to be finding like mature OBD2 econo cars and sedans. So like Accords, Civics, Camrys, Corollas, things
even
like that.
An Altima.
Right. Yeah. But you don't, not premium, because the thing is, if you go to like for example, if you go to Volvo,
too much technology,
but also parts are expensive. And I'm not talking like, oh, the seat controllers. No, I'm talking like axles are like $700 an axle. Yep. And when we know from experience, if you throw in like an AutoZone axle in a C30, it rides like shit. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It does not work. So you do have to pay that premium. Where if that's a Honda, you'd pay $160 for your axle. It'd be great, and it's going to run. So I guess, I am very curious to see what creative ways like young people or, financially unstable people keep cars alive as enthusiasts, because not everyone has like a rich daddy who's going to buy them a new Audi or something. This is not.
It is a bit nerve-wracking because not everybody's going to want EVs, or they can't afford them.
They're expensive.
They're very expensive, and at some point they're going to cut the taps.
Can I also say, cars. If I had an EV as a high schooler, or when I was like, if I'm like a kid living at home, if I had to then go home and plug my car into my house. Do you know how like pissed my dad would be if I like left a fucking light on in our house? You're wasting electricity. Now I'm gonna be charging an 85 kilowatt hour battery every fucking night.
Oh.
I'm just saying,
No.
It's not like that would cause a fight. That would cause a rift.
Well,
in my household,
and I, you know,
that's a big light bulb.
When you know when electric vehicle owners come up to me and like, yeah, but you don't have to pay for gas. I'm like, do you know where electricity comes from?
Well, all right, that isn't totally fair. It is much cheaper. It is much more efficient.
It's not cheaper,
but the reality is like this is one of those like. And I know this isn't necessarily what you're saying, but I do hear people like, well, it's coming from coal, it's coming from oil. Yes, but at a much more efficient rate, right? Like your engine is like a fucking dog. Your engine is a Countach V12 compared to like the efficiency of a power plant.
I just don't see the savings when the car is $45,000 and then it's worth 10 next year.
You have to factor
lose
in,
it all.
You have to factor in depreciation, which is going to bring me to my next point. I did a Quattroporte video the other day.
Oh yeah, that old one.
It was an '08, so it's the very last. All right, my head was spinning at trying to decode what this car was because this Quattroporte, it's an '08, so it's a 4.2 liter. Okay, so it's an early car, but it's not so early that it's a Duo Select single clutch gearbox. It's a ZF6.
It's got the ZF, yeah.
Right. Okay. And it's a Sport GTS, which they only made 667 Sport GTSs pre-facelift.
Okay.
And then they went to 2009 with Sport GTS and it had the 4.7 liter.
So this is a rare car.
So it's a rare car. And people were calling me out like, this isn't a real GTS because GTSs have the 4.7 liter. And I'm like, are they right? I had to go and dig, right? And then there's little things like the Sport GTS has body colored handles, door handles, whereas the other cars don't. Like the GT doesn't have that. And then it has like a special wheel option. It has an tire option because it's 295 in the back instead of like a 285. It has like quad tipped. There's all these dumb little nuances. Also, it doesn't have the Skyhook adaptive suspension, which is a good thing price wise for sure. Well, it's just not that good. And also, you know, you're talking about like an early 2000s adaptive suspension. You got to replace that. That's going to be like $2,000 a corner easily for Maserati. Yeah. So the moral of this story was like, hey, here's this cool thing that I thought was cool when it came out, and it's under 25 grand. Depreciation Society owner, Chris, he paid under $25,000 for this car. It has 30,000 miles on it. And I'm not saying this is the financially savvy thing to do. It's a fucking Maserati. It will find creative ways to fuck you over.
But to get into an Italian sedan that's fun to drive as maybe a toy or even, you know, you live in California and you don't drive very far.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And it sounds fantastic. And so everyone's like, well, an E92 M3 is better. I'm like, okay. It's also probably triple the cost at 30,000 miles. Find me a perfectly clean E92. This is $60,000 car now.
The one you'd be getting for 29 is yours. That's what you'd end up with.
Exactly.
A car that has either been, you know, totaled.
My car was not totaled, for the record.
No, not yours.
Just brown, you know, like underneath. It's getting brown, getting a little wintry.
Yeah, exactly. A little crusty. Yeah. Like when you go underneath to do an oil change and you try to take off the, you know, the under tray, it all just breaks.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where there is no longer an option to wear safety glasses when you're under the car because you will injure your eyes.
No, you have a thing of zip ties in the trunk. So when you do put that under tray back on, you just zip tie it. Makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely. Anyway, so I always want to like bring up kind of what cars could be bought at this point that are fun or interesting or quirky because it is getting difficult. It used to be that Porsches were kind of quirky. Like if you had an air-cooled 911, that was like you were the Magnus Walker of the
You were
the group.
weird.
Yeah, you were the weirdo. Now it's like you go to a car show and it's just like we're everywhere. It's just all of us,
like,
you know.
Which model?
Exactly.
You know?
And then it's a whole thing. And now you have to go so far. People went so far that they're spending, you know, $1 million, $2 million on like these Singer things and Gunther Works. And I'm not saying that they're great cars, but it is now like just the obvious option for your quirky enthusiast thing to do if you've got a little cash. But what if you don't have a little bit of cash, but you don't want an average car? And I just think like you have to take the leap into potential maintenance nightmares.
Yeah.
But that's where it's at. I mean, look, E92 M3, it can be a maintenance nightmare. You're still looking at
a maintenance whore.
You know, when you're looking at rod bearings as a wear item like that, that's kind of scary.
And how much are oil changes on that thing?
A lot. It's like 160 or $200.
Listen, if you are looking for a 20-plus-year-old enthusiast car, it's going to be expensive to maintain usually. You know, because the ironic part is even the Japanese stuff isn't cheap anymore.
No.
You know, you look for an R32.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, R33, R34. Obviously, the S2000, Mark IV Supra, no. You know, the RX-7. I mean, all those cars are now priced out.
Right, and even if you were given one,
I mean, hell,
trying to find someone to work on it is tough. And if you do find that shop, it's probably going to be expensive.
It's expensive. You got to wait for parts, and God knows what with all the stuff coming up with the new president.
Yep.
You know,
and well, they're
that's a
gonna
scare.
And they're going to reverse, I think, all the EV mandates, which, you know, whichever side of that coin you're on, it doesn't matter. It's just that, like, what a dramatic change in business for these companies. Because, like, if you're GM, if you're Toyota, if you're any of these companies who like have invested heavily in electrification and stuff, I guess Toyota's maybe a little more of an outlier because they're more into the hybrids, but still. If you're Ford, you just spent billions of dollars, like factories, yeah. Right? And what I don't know. This is weird.
It is a weird time, and we're already seeing the effects from it. I mean, the best example that I always tell people is go look at the new C63, and you know that car they got so wrong. I don't think I've ever seen a fuck up for Mercedes like that.
I haven't driven it yet. I've been in a bunch of them because I photographed about 100 of them down in New Jersey. But yeah, I don't. What's wild about that car is when it was even announced, it was immediately dismissed. Yeah. There were no orders. Think about that. A new car, like a new car that's beloved. This is like the 911 getting a new generation.
But he loves that
and
car.
Nobody placed any orders.
Ugh.
Like that's crazy. But you know,
now that'll be a good used purchase in a couple of years, though.
Agreed.
If you can afford
the maintenance on it, yeah.
You know, just buy a stock load of batteries.
Oh my God. Well, this is what scares me. So we have at Bond Group right now. Yeah. There is I want to say it's a 91 or a 92 because I think it's a 3-speed auto, Aston Martin Virage. Now. The Virage, here, let me show you a picture of it because I'm sure you're kind of like, I think I know what that is.
It's that square one, right?
It's very square. It has
2 superchargers?
Well, this one doesn't, but there were, those were, I think, the Vantages.
Yes, that one.
What do you think these taillights came off of?
That looks like an SL. Or, I don't know. What is that from?
Volkswagen Scirocco.
Oh, you're right.
And I was very proud of myself for getting that because but this car is like a real barn find.
From that corner, that looks like a first-gen Ford Taurus.
Doesn't it? It's wild. This is the weirdest car, but it's got the 5.3 liter V8. It's a cool car, but the problem with this car is that it may never run again without like some piggyback because the issue with these like early like OBD1 cars, if you don't have like the Aston Martin computers, you are SOL.
You can't get into it.
It's over. It's kind of like that Silver Seraph.
I was going to say it's another British nightmare.
Yep. Okay. And so this is like that weird stuff where like you want to talk about a potential scary thing to have like, oh boy, like if something goes wrong, it may not run. Like that Maserati, if something goes wrong, you can always fix it. It just takes money. A car like that will take a network. You need to know people.
You need to redesign the entire electrical system.
It's scary.
That's a scary thought.
Right. So I don't know, but you know, those are interesting cases where like, that's a really cool car. Also, but guess how much that goes for? Guess what that trades for? If that was a nice one, let's say
40.
Yeah, like 50 to 80. I thought like, this is crazy because you get a DB7, which is in that realm. Fucking bulletproof. The door cards will fall off, but it'll drive.
So what do people see in
25, 30 grand for like the nicest one you've ever seen.
What do people see in that?
I think they see heritage. I think they see like a period of Aston Martin.
Pre-Ford days?
It kind of is the Ford days though, because it has the Fox body airbag when you get into the 94s or whatever. Yeah, like it's wild.
Well, I mean,
it's a Ford Econoline steering wheel.
That is a prime example of a car you should LS swap. Get rid of that. I know it'll get rid of some of the feeling or emotion of it, but if it's not going to work, then why the fuck does it matter?
Right. But I guess, I don't know. It is just very strange to see things like that. And suddenly you're like, whoa, like that's holding value, even though it is what would be objectively a maintenance nightmare.
Imagine that with an LS7.
The coolest thing ever. That'd be a great drift car.
Well, until you have to replace the body panels. But
Wow.
that's why we got 3D printers, right?
There you go. All right. So I feel I'm excited because time is moving faster as we age. And this is good. You know why?
Why is that?
Because that means winter's going to be over soon. We're going to get to go back to the racetrack.
Oh, yeah.
I do like driving.
Dude, it's crazy. It's already January.
I love it. I'm so excited for March, April. I bought a set of wheels for the Honda, the FL5. And
they're sexy too.
I gotta reach out to my Bridgestone guy. I need some tires. I need some rubber.
You need some rubber and not the kind for the bed.
Bedroom. No, we need round rubber.
I mean, you could put the tires in your bed, but that'd be a little weird and
I'd
smelly.
sleep with those tires. They're pretty fucking sweet. They probably keep me safe.
Those tires.
If someone broke into my apartment and found they were gonna like attack me in my bed, but saw me sleeping with a set of Bridgestones, you think they're gonna come in there? They're gonna be like, "Well, this guy's fucked." They're gonna leave.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, "He's more fucked than me." Yeah.
He needs help.
So there you go.
So those tires, I'll just want to briefly speak on them.
The RE71 RSs.
Yes, the RSs. So I ran those a couple years ago. Those are the best tires I've ever driven on.
I love
on
them
the track for
so
200
much.
treadwears.
Yeah. Easily.
Personally.
Yeah.
So the event at Watkins Glen, you remember, it was a piss storm.
Total fucking washout.
And I drove those tires in that rain, and it was really good.
It's difficult to find a good 200 treadwear that can also handle the wet, because that's the thing. Sometimes they're like, oh wow, the thing about 200 treadwear tires is like they may all look about the same on paper. They may all have this and that and blah blah blah. But there are things that they do differently, which is how do they heat up? How do they fall off when they get greasy? How do they handle in the wet? How do they handle like multiple heat cycles? And this tire I drove at AMP at Atlanta Motorsports Park in those Civic TCA cars. I just fell in love. I was like, because the only other tire I'd ever driven a TCA car on was a Slick. It was a Hoosier Slick. So I've driven that car on a Hoosier Slick and an RS, and I was like, I preferred the RS.
Yeah, there's a lot more feeling.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Great tire.
The breakaway was great. That's the thing. The breakaway on the Slicks was
You're gone.
now.
Yeah.
Because I had an understeer moment in that car that, I mean, I collected it. I put 2 off, but I collected it. I got it. It's funny because it's the only time I've ever done that. I never put 2 off. I always am pretty good
Was
about.
it Honda's car?
It was. I had to go racing like the next day.
Oh no!
So I was like, ugh. The thing is, I saved it. There was a ditch. There's like this gully, and I had the pro driver in the passenger seat. So I'm like going a little wide, and I was like, oh fuck. I'm like, there's no way I'm collecting this before we go. So I just made a choice because I could have fought it, and I was like, I just yelled, I got this, and then I just went straight because I needed to avoid like. Putting it in the gully. Not to mention I didn't want to fuck up a wheel, because if I had the wheel turned, I would have hit the curb.
Oh, broken the suspension.
And I could have done some damage. So what I did was I let the car just track over it nicely. I just accepted that I was going to be in the grass for like a foot, and then just brought it back over. And he was like, nice. And I was like, if there's anything I can do, I think I could be a good endurance driver because I'll keep a car alive.
Yeah.
I might not have the fastest fucking lap time, but if I do have a moment, I'll probably solve it enough to keep the car drivable.
Well, you know what? An alignment is a lot cheaper than a control arm.
Yes.
So good job.
Yeah. So I kept the car together. But I think those RE71 RSs that I drove later at AMP were just like absolute game changer. And I'm so excited to put it on my Honda because I think the Type R deserves some sticky rubber. And we're gonna keep it simple. I mean, I'm gonna do the basics because there are people who go like my buddy Zygreen Fenton. He has this like insane Olin setup.
Yeah. He's got a decent setup on that Integra.
That's a serious setup for that suspension. It's not as serious as you could go, but it's more serious than I care to do. I am kind of in the camp of like, let's leave most of it stock. We'll do an alignment, wheels, tires, sticky rubber. Brake pads from probably Paragon, and the spacers to help the pad spacers to help
thermal spacers.
Yep. So that's going to help keep my brakes cool, and fluid, and we call it a day.
Yeah.
RBF, the resting bitch face. Yeah. 600.
And run these rotors to the ground, and then we'll get some other ones.
Absolutely. And the nice thing is they have like nice 2-piece rotors on them anyway, so we can just throw some rings and we're good to go.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to it because I'm just going to kind of ramp up and be like, okay, first, the first track day, I just want to like refamiliarize myself with the car. And like, yep, I'll have it on sticky rubber, but that's normal for me. Mm-hmm. And then we'll go into some of the other stuff and see what we can do. Then I'll fiddle with alignments and things like that. But the beautiful thing is that now that it's not my day-to-day, everyday driver, I'm going to be able to put kind of an extreme alignment on the car without being like, oh God, now I'm going to put like 12,000 miles on this car this season on the road and I'm going to destroy like 3 sets of Michelins.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that sucks.
Race car alignments are not good for the road.
No, they fucking kill. Like, and they're not relaxing because your car just tram lines everywhere.
No, it's
sucks.
all over the place.
Absolutely fucking sucks. What about you? What's your New Year's goals for the FK8 grid life or just driving in general?
Driving in general, I'd like to actually go on a drive with you and David, perhaps, and Corey if she wants. And like not on the racetrack, like take our actual cars and go and enjoy them.
I want to do this more regularly, and nothing highlights the need to do that more than being in New England in the winter when a lot of your friends are in Los Angeles because they're all still going up to Breakfast Club. They're all still doing their normal thing. They're just driving. They're like, oh yeah, my Dave Coleman and his wife Sarah, they've got this insane like Lancia that they drive everywhere, and it's fun. And they're like, she just drives this car everywhere, and she rips up to Breakfast Club, and I'm like, oh, well, there's salt on the roads, and I feel guilty driving my fucking Lexus.
Yes, okay.
So
this is a good segue.
I'll say I want to go on some drives.
Yeah. We all want to go on drives. This is a great place to leave from too. So as we found out,
Garage 42, is like actually nestled right at it's like the precipice of nightmare suburban Boston roads and like
motoring heaven
for
Massachusetts.
For Massachusetts, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a good segue, right? Because you were talking about seasonal depression. I'm assuming that's what sort of you were referring to with the winter.
I would love it if it was seasonal, but let's call it seasonal.
We'll make you feel. We'll make
pervasive depths of my emotional instability.
We'll make the listeners feel better. It's seasonal, and
they only see me when I'm manic in a crazy car. Anyway, go ahead.
So there's a few. First thing I wanted to get your take on this. What do you do besides sit at your computer and watch videos and edit that makes you happy to, remember that, May's just around the corner and you'll be out, doing your thing. But in the meantime, what do you do to stay motivated?
For me, it's like forcing movement, right? Like I try to, it's not even an aesthetic. I guess it is because I'm vain. I run, I lift, I try to keep myself moving, and I try to eat somewhat healthy, and it's so fucking hard. This is so hard, especially
now.
Dude, December into January. The problem is what happens is that last week of December, right? You've got Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, all this stuff, right? So it's just like you're eating like shit nonstop.
Oh yeah.
Because there's too much food everywhere.
Always.
And everywhere you go, even if you have like a couple of friends, even if you're not like a big popular guy, you're probably going to like 3 to 6 things where there's food, whether it's at work, whether it's like a family member, whether it's a friend who's having like a little Christmas shindig or whatever. And the thing is, I don't drink very much, but I do drink at the holidays because I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a glass of wine. I'm going to have an old fashioned. I'm going to have a little bourbon. I'm going to have a little beer. I'm going to eat a little cake. Oh, a cookie. Oh, you made these? Yeah, I'll have that. And then I start like acting like an asshole. And I'm like, not like because I'm drunk, but just like I start eating outside of what I should be doing.
Outside of your normal realm.
And it fucks with my head.
Yeah.
Because the problem is I'm a pretty small person, but because I'm like small and lean, if I put on anything, it's like
noticeable.
It's like adding a passenger to a Lotus Elise. Okay. So for me, it's like I know how I'm supposed to, what I like to be when I'm like fit and trim, doing my summer thing. Ooh, chicken, rice, and veggies. Yeah. All right. We'll keep it tight. Oh, no, thanks. No beer for me. I'll have sparkling water. That's the shit where I'm like, okay, I've got a handle on it. I'm in control. I lose all of it during the holidays. I lose all of the control. I eat fucking everything. We went to dinner the other night.
I was going to bring that up.
That was carnage.
Oh, dude.
When the dessert platter came out,
At least there was fruit on it.
I ate the fruit so I would stop eating the fucking cake. It was unbelievable. I was just savagely eating this shit. And the thing is, the holidays also, you can also have like self-control with alcohol. And I don't mean this in like an alcoholic way. I mean it in like a caloric way. A can of beer, a bottle of beer, it's a lot of calories.
Adds up.
Right? You have 3 of those, that's a fucking shitload of calories, right? So the problem is that if you during the year don't drink much because you're like, oh, you can say it's expensive. Like if you live in New York, it's like a fucking $30 cocktail. You want like a cheap drink in Manhattan is $20, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the cheapest you'll get for a cocktail. You could be like, well, I'm not going to spend $60 or $80 on booze tonight, so I won't drink, or I'll have one drink. But during the holidays, it's all out there. Everyone's got their, there's a bar everywhere. Someone's pouring you a glass of wine. It's just available.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to say no. And so now I'm reeling it all back in, and I'm doing like, I just walked out. You sat down and I said, I'm going to go get myself a drink. I was going to go get a Diet Coke. That's like my guilty pleasure. I ended up getting a water. Now I get it. Diet Coke doesn't have calories. That's fine. That's whatever. But I'm like, I don't really need the extra caffeine. It's going to fuck with my head. And then I'm going to eat later because I'm going to be like wound up and like, and like anxiously like sucking down fucking tortilla
Doesn't it also
chips.
have aspartame in it?
Super fucking bad for you.
Okay.
That's the kind of shit where like, I love it, but it is engineered for you to love it.
Oh, it's sick.
But it's really bad for you. Like, and I'm not going to get into some big, like, conspiracy about aspartame, but the thing about aspartame, the one study that I remember like reading, it basically said something along the lines of people who have like rheumatoid arthritis or like severe like joint pain and stuff, who they were like, hey, what do you consume in a day? And they drink like, like 6 Diet Cokes a day.
Yeah.
They're like, why don't you try not? And like 3 weeks later, they're like, I don't have any pain.
Wow.
It's some like crazy thing. Now, there's a lot of asterisks on this because I don't know the exact timeline or consumption rate or whatever, but I just know that like it does have an effect on you, a deleterious effect on your body.
I have family members who that's mostly what they consume, and it's when they don't, it's noticeable.
There's no free lunch. There's no zero. You're not getting something for nothing. It doesn't work that way.
It's not how it works. There's always a price to pay on these 0 calories, 0 sugar drinks.
Yes. So this year I think I ran just shy of 500 miles this year, which was a little bit less than last year. But my knees were acting up a little more this year, and I was lifting more this year. So I was trading like gym time, running time for gym time. You're still
doing,
absolutely.
It's just in a different part of your body.
Yep. So I guess for me, I should probably be on an SSRI just because it would probably take a little bit of the edge off. But I've been kind of raw dogging the depression for the last like 6 years. And I'm like, let's just fucking figure it out.
Hey, if you can manage whatever it is that you deal with, then it's totally acceptable, because medications also come with a cost. So
yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, there's no free lunch, but like, if you're going to blow your brains out versus taking an SSRI,
it's like, that's like, you're going into the red line here.
Yeah.
For me, if you want to go back, 5 or 6 years, right? Especially during COVID, I had the worst. I mean, I still do have seasonal depression, but it was really bad. Like, I would just work because I had to work at home remotely. So for me, the difficult part was I couldn't shut off. So I'd get on a roll with something, and next thing you know, it's 8 o'clock and I'm still working.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, I just want to get this over with. But in my brain, it's like, okay, well, then I'm done. But then I start the next day and the same thing I have to do again. So it was really tough on me. And one thing that Corey got me back into was snowboarding.
Any new people to the pod? Corey is Eddie's girlfriend, fiance. Corey's fiance. I'm going to be marrying them. I'm officiating this wedding.
Yeah,
we'll get to that at some point. Yeah. Anyway, so she got you snowboarding.
Yeah, it got me back out on the board, and that's helped so much. Just getting outside and enjoying something in the winter, which is very hard.
Yes, it's that combination of physical movement and exposing yourself
Yeah.
Exposing yourself to the outdoors.
What do you
Being
do, Tom?
well, first I take off my clothes.
Okay.
Then I get the old Patagonia trench coat and walk up and down the green line.
Just the button one, so it's
Yeah.
just one whole swing,
And then everybody laughs and I say, "It's cold."
oh my god,
No, that's terrible.
what a turn this podcast turned into.
The Patagucci flasher.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the other thing is I think a lot of people who are it is the hardest thing about figuring out your depression is making a change, because depression is like a smothering blanket, and it's really hard to get out of that like warm comfort of depression. It's a fucked up way to say this, but the warm comfort of depression does not mix well with, hey, want to put your running shoes on and go outside when it's 30 degrees? No, it's like, go fuck yourself. I will rot in this bed before I do that. But you have to, like, all it takes is that initial push. You've got to fucking push. You got to just do it.
Yeah,
you really have to
just
do it.
get out, do something.
Well, and a lot of people don't feel like they're even entitled to that because, like, for example, like someone who may identify as like an overweight person who's not very active might not feel like, oh, I'll go for a run, right? Like you might not feel like that's for you. You might not even, you might be too ashamed to even do that outside because someone might see you doing it. Nothing makes me happier than seeing someone who doesn't look like they are a typical runner running, because I'm like, yes,
They're trying.
because it's your fucking body.
Yeah.
Move it how you want. Do, like, you are entitled to movement. You're entitled to the outdoors. You're entitled to that space. You're entitled to whatever the fuck you want to do. And I think a lot of people don't, like, for example, I know I didn't go to the gym for a long time to lift weights because I'm like, like, I know what to do. That's what's insane. I actually know how to lift. Like, I know what I'm doing in a gym, but I'm like, I didn't really want to expose myself to that scenario for a while until I started going. I'm like, okay, I know where, because I'm a creature of habit. Like, if I go in, I know where I'm going, I know what I'm doing, and then I'm done. I get in and out. I hate going somewhere and like looking around being like, oh, where's the preacher curl bench over there? Oh, okay, there's the cables. Like, I hate that feeling of not knowing where I am. And I don't, and I'm such a guy because I don't like asking for help.
Yeah.
But you got to just fucking do it.
I know what I'm doing.
Also,
Get on a machine and break your back.
you don't have to spend a shitload of money on a gym membership. It seems like it's fucking expensive. Like, you can go to Lifetime, you can go to Equinox, you can spend $600 a month depending on what you're fucking doing.
Depending on where you are, there's probably parks that you can use.
Not only that, but like I spend $30 a month on my gym membership. It's not a bougie gym.
No, I
but
mean,
like, guess what? The weights are the fucking same.
It does the same thing. Yeah, I think, just getting some, endorphins going into your body, get the blood flowing.
Yeah,
it's just good to do.
yeah. So this year I'm gonna like, my goal is always to just continue that movement. It's the same way as like the cars, right? Like, I don't go crazy on like modifications on cars because I'm like, well, I need the car to still run. Like, I don't want to build out like some like stanced out track rat and then be like, I got to get this thing inspected and I got to take it to work or whatever. Like, that's
We've all
not fun
been
for me.
there.
Whereas I look at the same way with like my running, where everyone always asks, when am I going to do the marathon? And I'm like, well, I'm afraid that if I do the marathon, I might do some like irreversible damage to a knee or a hip or something. And then it's like, well, then where am I at? Whereas if I just continued running my 15 to 20 miles a week for, in perpetuity till I'm 70, then I probably get more benefit out of that than one marathon where I like severely damage something.
Where,
I don't know.
No, it's scary. I know. Why don't you try a half marathon first?
Yeah, the problem is usually around 8 miles is where I start to feel things, where I'm like, I need to cut it. And you have to know when to stop.
So
and the problem is when you're doing a race, you don't stop the race. You will break your fucking transmission before you stop a race, even if you hear a sound.
I get it. And actually, I want to speak about that later. But why can't you just, you are not going for time, right? If you go into the Boston Marathon, you're not going for time. You're doing it for other reasons, don't you have to like?
Well, yeah,
I'm
not qualifying for the Boston. You would need to be on a team that is a fundraising team.
So then why does it matter? You can take a break if you need it.
Oh, I guess, but like,
yes, I know you're like,
I don't know. I'm competitive, and this is the problem: is that I'm like secretly incredibly competitive.
Yeah, for everybody that's listening, Tom is one of the most competitive people you'll ever meet, and he's an in the closet competitive person. But like, once he figures something out, He's going to go as far as he fucking can to be the best at it.
I'm not a sore loser. I'm not mean. I just, if there's an opportunity for me to win, I want it.
Yeah. For example, we were playing Cards Against Humanity last week, and I went to the bathroom, and he decided to even the odds.
Corey chose you, and you were gone, and I said, "Who's your second choice?" And so then she chose me, and then she handed me the card, and I said, And then, but I came clean about it after. We ended up tying because I won by one.
He ended up feeling guilty about it.
I actually completely forgot about it, and Corey remembered. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Don't trust him at a party.
But what have you been doing? So snowboarding's good, but that's not something you can do every day.
So it's funny you say that. I'm trying to do 15 days this year, which isn't a lot for some people, but for us Bostonians, or for me that has a
But to stay sane,
job.
you've got to do more than 15 days of movement. So what do you do day to day?
So when I'm not snowboarding, the other thing I love to do is, it's going to laugh,
I know what
Call
you're
of
going to
Duty.
say. Yep.
I love playing that stupid game.
I knew you were going to say that. You and David are obsessed with Call of Duty.
Well, so it's not the game. The game is fun. It's the getting on, putting your stupid headset on and just talking shit for couple hours and just being an absolute idiot. I have so much fun.
It's funny. You basically described why I like going to the track with you guys. And this is also why I don't necessarily get into the grid life thing, because I am competitive. And here's the thing. I'm competitive, but I don't necessarily like that about myself.
You don't want to be competitive in that situation because that's a rabbit hole that you don't want to find.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't this is one of those hulky things where it's I don't like this about myself.
Yeah.
You don't want to know me when I'm competitive. All right, I'm not an asshole, but I don't like the feeling. And so what I like to do is I want to go and improve and do well, but I don't want the pressure to do it, which is what I like about going on a track day and having my own little time attack where I'm okay, what did I do today? How am I improving?
What did Tom do?
Yeah. And then I love it when you're shit. And then you want to get in the car with me to be show me what you're doing. And then either you're impressed with me or you shave some more time off of my lap or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that. That's fun for me. And I like that feeling of just bullshitting with your friends. And it's harder to do that as you get older, unless you're super duper stupid fucking wealthy. Because I think it's easier to bullshit with your rich friends if you're a rich dude. Yeah. But it's harder when you're fuck me, this is the one Saturday I've already spent $3.99 on this track day plus the $500 for insurance, and then you're stressed out anyway. So it is fun when you're able to really let go. And
I love it. There's some other games I love playing Forza and Grand Theft Auto, but there's this one stupid game called SnowRunner that has taken months of my life.
Is that the one with the trucks?
Yes, it's the one where you drive the trucks through the snow at ludicrously slow speeds. And if you flip over, you have to start over, or you have to bring another truck to that location.
You got to winch it out.
Winch it out. It's very, very methodical in how you play it. You have to mentally and see where you're going way ahead of time and calculate if you can actually fucking make it.
Because of the fuel.
The fuel.
I also really like watching you and David play that game. I like playing it, but it's a good spectator sport as well. Yeah. That game is because you just yell at each other the whole time.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
I think everything we do that we enjoy is us screaming at each other, which is pretty much accurate.
But if you ever want to play Xbox.
Let's get back to your goals for the FK8.
Okay.
What does it need to be competitive this year? Where are we at?
Okay. Goals that I'd love to win another event. That's always been a goal and always will be. Winning a championship would be awesome, but I don't think it's going to happen. But you never say never. I need to get the car running again.
What do you mean?
So it needs a head gasket.
Okay.
It's just a tired engine, and it just needs to, have some, not serious maintenance, but a decent amount. So, it'll get a head gasket, new head studs. So after a long time, on a boosted car, especially ones that are being pushed beyond their operational.
Right. Cause you're probably around 350 horsepower or.
Yeah. Somewhere around there.
Okay.
Which is more than the factory car.
It's 60 horsepower more.
The head studs just stretch.
Sure.
They get hot, they get cold, they get hot, they get cold. Well, they stretch.
So the head isn't necessarily warping, it's just lifting.
It's lifting.
Got it.
So what'll happen is, and you've seen it on track, it's fine for 2 laps. And then the head slightly lifts and coolant likes to push out
Yep.
through the overflow.
Yep.
So the engine, makes full power. It's gonna go at some point.
Yes.
I limped it through Lime Rock and then pit race. But now it's time. I have a head gasket, head studs, that sort of thing.
All right.
And then depending on, we pull it and if all the pistons are shot, then it'll get a different engine.
Okay.
I'll just get a wrecked engine.
Right.
The other side to this is, you were talking about that blown up transmission. I finally got around to having my good friend Chris take it apart because I know nothing about transmissions. I think that's another thing that I want to work on. I want to learn more about how transmissions work.
If you said draw a transmission, I could draw you what I think it looks like, and it might be kind of close, but it wouldn't be like engineering accuracy whatsoever.
Do you know the movie Matrix Reloaded?
Sure.
Okay, remember like the basement, where everything was running like inside the. Okay, there was like a place where all the humans lived underground.
Okay.
There was like a bunch of machinery. That's what I think of when I think of like a transmission.
Just a bunch of gears everywhere.
And shit just going in a circle.
There's probably like a fucking Disney movie, like a cartoon with like mice in a clock tower that's similar to that too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So he's rebuilding your transmission.
So he's rebuilding the transmission, and
but you have another one anyway because you bought another transmission.
So yeah, the one that's in the car is perfectly fine. But I've been wanting to get this old one, if it was even fixable, back on the road because
just in case
these cars like to chew through transmissions.
Yeah, because the TCA cars and the TCR cars usually they reinforce fourth gear.
Fourth gear, yeah.
Which you lost third.
I lost fourth.
You lost fourth. Okay. Fourth, yeah. All right.
So yeah, and in spectacular fashion, the entire gear broke off. Not just like a chip, not just a tooth. The entire gear broke.
It's fucking crazy.
I've never seen that before. But somehow, the transmission miraculously survived. I was expecting for it to open and just like a bunch of springs and shit fly out.
Everything else looked normal.
Yeah.
It was like you threw ball bearings in an engine like down the intake and like nothing else was impacted but like one piston.
So the damage is fifth gear. There was like a small chip. So I'm just going to replace that gear. Better safe than sorry. The entire fourth gear. So main gear and the other gear, I forget what it's called. It's like main shaft gear and then the other gear. Anyways, and then I'm going to do all the synchros since we're in there, and then I'll do a diff and the reinforced fourth gear.
Speaking of synchros,
yeah,
our friend Liam has an E36
the
M3
video
race car.
Yeah.
Dude,
so
he
cool.
put I hope it's okay that I say this on the air. He put a dog box in this thing. And so it's no synchros. It's still an H pattern. It's not a sequential. So it's an H pattern dog box. And he sent me the video of the guy, like the builder
dyno.
on the dyno, watching him shift through this thing. I was like, oh my, I've never driven a dog box before. Cause that's like a straight up race car.
It's cool.
And
dog boxes are cool.
I was like, holy shit. That was wild.
Yeah. Dog boxes are really cool transmissions.
I'm like no clutch. You just slam gears. I was like, oh dude, this is sick.
There's very few things that are as fun as third to fourth in a race car with a transmission that allows you to do it without the clutch.
Yeah,
it is so good to just smash it, and you have to really pull.
That's the thing. It's a commitment and an effort.
You have to do
because
it.
If you're slow, you're gonna grind.
Yeah,
you got to hit it.
Yep.
So I fingers crossed. Hope I get to drive a dog. If it's that one, great. If it's a different one, great. I just want to learn.
You need to drive a NASCAR.
Yeah,
because that's where I drove it. The 4-speeds are Jericho's, so that you only need the clutch in first, and then the rest is
no shit.
Yeah, and it's one of the most satisfying gear changes.
Right. I gotta try it. All right. Before we sign off, I'm trying to think. I guess for me, I'm not a resolution guy. I'm someone, if someone's asked.
So you're like standard def, not high def resolution?
I'm low resolution. I'm 240p. I am not really that big on, I don't ever think about that. If someone says, what are your resolutions? Suddenly I have them.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
But I don't
thought of a bunch together.
To me, I'm just like, God, what do I need to be happy? That's really where I'm at. And I think the problem is I'm a squirrel, right? I go here, I go there, I go here, I go there, I go here. I always return to home. I always go to these like 4 locations. and then I go home, and then I like curl up in a ball and watch like Dexter on Netflix or something. I need to feel more like liberated to explore. I need to feel like I can just get in my car. I have all these cars. I have all of the tools I need to just go places. Yeah. So like, I want to just go places.
Yeah.
That's all. I want to go places, and I want to go places with my friends.
Well, you can do that virtually in Forza Horizon 5.
I do not want to do that.
He hates Xbox, and I get really annoyed because I think he would actually have too much fun and get addicted.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yes,
Tom,
correct. Because the problem is I'm describing to you how I want to be outside, going places, doing things, experiencing things. And you're like, you know what you need? An Xbox. I'm like, no, because it's the opposite. It is going to isolate me.
Listen,
I will be in my house. I don't want to talk to you on a headset unless I'm staring at you at this podcast studio. I want to talk to you in person.
All right. I hate bringing up movies, but in Total Recall,
fuck's sake.
Okay. They could have you can take a trip virtually and it's just as good.
It's not.
I'm just saying.
It's not.
Look what happened to that guy. Whatever his name was.
Whatever his name was.
Oh, it was Arnold, but I forget his fucking name.
I don't know.
It was Douglas Quaid or something like that.
I haven't seen Total Recall in ages.
Well, how can you not forget the melting face and then the eyes exploding?
I'm consistently in this weird position where I'm trying to like maintain my cars, keep them in good shape, but also use them properly. And to me, that means
you need to enjoy it. You need to respect the drive, and that means drive it.
Yes.
And we are the worst at this. And we talked about this over a year ago at the same time, and I remember it because we're like, oh, what resolutions are you going to have? Well, we're going to drive. Well, that never fucking happened.
Nothing happened. And
so here we are again.
The problem too is like my Civic has 17,000 miles on it. I don't remember like any of them. I remember like 4 drives.
That's so depressing.
You know what I mean? Because you just drive up and down the highway going to work and whatever. And I know my job is good. I'm not complaining about that. But I'm saying, I'm like, that car is
designed. Like, there's never been a time. I have never been on a back road with you in that car.
Never.
I've never been on any fun drive with you in that car except for being in a passenger seat. Yeah. We went on like 2 or 3 side hits on a road. That was it.
No.
I've never seen it on I mean, that is, we got to change that. That's ridiculous.
I want to have dumb bullshit destinations too. I want to be like, there's a coffee shop like 200 miles away. Let's go have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Find excuses to leave.
Yes. And it no longer I can afford fuel. There's very little stopping me at this point.
You have the greatest tool to your advantage, and that's this place.
Yeah.
You have no excuse to not drive your car.
I'm going to go blast off the undercarriage of the Lexus after this podcast.
Oh, that's a good call. Yeah. Maybe I should do that too. I got to go. But no, I mean, listen, it's a new year. It's a new you. You know,
it's a new me. It's the same me. I'm still just a little stress ball of anxiety and depression who has too many cars that I don't use enough, and I'm going to try to use them more this year. That's the goal. The goal is to drive the fucking cars. I want to drive them. I want to use them. I want to go places. And hopefully this year we'll have more dedicated time as our friend group, because I think last year we were all working like crazy. There's a lot of weird shit going on too, and it was just hard to spend proper time together. Yeah. I think this year we're really good. When we do things, we do them well.
Yeah.
And I want to do more of those things, and I want it to be a little more impromptu. And whether that's like grid life trips, great, or I want those Saturday morning calls.
Yeah.
Where like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That's what I want. I need that. I need that. Like, I need that sitcom level of, hey, walking in the kitchen and just being like, what's going on, guys? Like, I need that. I think that's one of those things that as you get into your like late 20s and 30s, your life stops becoming a dormitory.
Yeah.
And that fucking sucks, because it was so easy to find shit to do when you were in college. It was so easy to find shit to do when you're living with 4 people.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a Friday night. What are you doing? I don't know. What are you doing? You might just sit and have a beer and watch a movie. You might be like, want to go check out that, bar down the street, or that club, or go for a drive, or whatever the fuck. That's easy to do when you like live with people. It's really difficult as you get older and you're not like the family guy. Like I don't have a wife and kids, right? So like my weekends are not Home Depot runs and diaper changes. I need to occupy my fucking time. And I also don't want to waste it because the people who I need to have fun for the guys who have to do the Home Depot run and the diaper changes because if they looked at me and saw me squandering this time, they'd want to kill me.
Yeah. When you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do on a Saturday afternoon?
They're like, fuck you. I know. Because every dad of like of little kids knows exactly what they would do with their time because they daydream about it.
Exactly.
So I need to do I need to make them proud and be like, yeah, no, I did it. I did the things.
There's only so many days you can sit by the pool. All right. Actually, that's a lie. I could sit there every fucking day.
I do love it. But yeah, so I'm going to try to make better choices. And when I say better choices, I don't mean like, I'm not going to like do terrible things. I mean like the cars I drive this year, I want to make better choices about where I dedicate my time.
I think you're saying a dedication of time, less about the cars. It's more you.
Yeah. But also I want to make sure that like, if I have, I have so many people who offer me stuff to drive, but then like,
you got to turn some of them down.
I want
the opposite.
I need to take up the ones that are offering me like wild shit versus being like, oh, I've got this obligation with like this press trip or something. It's like, you know what? Maybe we should
press
take
trips aren't what you thought they were.
They're good. They have their merit. I think I just need to make sure that I'm doing the ones that I like to do. And
I'd like to see more vloggy videos again, more you. I know you don't like being in front of the camera, but just you as yourself and less. Here's the 2024 Chevrolet Volt. I'm going to try.
I wish.
I'm going to drive it to New York City, and it's just you fucking plugging it in. Oh, and, an hour and a half goes by. I got to go take a walk somewhere.
I wish they would bring back the Volt.
Oh, yeah, nice. They did get rid of
It's
that.
gone,
That was
baby.
a great car.
I know. I love how you use that as a joke, and I'm thinking, but that would be a great car.
I know.
Anyway, I don't know. I don't have anything else. I just wanted to get on, have a chat.
It's always good. It's always a good time.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, actually, if you have concerns, if they're
about Tom's mental health, don't worry. He's fine. He's perfectly fine.
Send me an email if there are topics, people, things you want to hear about.
Yeah, you want our opinions on stupid shit. I mean, it could be anything.
Absolutely. Ask the questions via Instagram, via email, tedwarddrives@gmail.com. If you want to support the channel, the podcast, the vision, go to the Patreon, throw a few bucks down every month. That would be really helpful. It pays for the gas to get here. And if you're looking for additional podcast to listen to, check out the Backseat Drivers with Devin and Eddie. They talk inside baseball of grid life, and also not even that anymore. They're just shooting the shit.
I was gonna say it's a little more vulgar, a little more out there, but it's always a good time.
Yeah, but I hope the holidays were good to you. If they were not good to you, there is time to recover. You can correct your sins, whether you ate like shit, drank too much, whatever. I know it's tough when the sun goes down.
Late. It's never too late to change the trajectory you're going in.
That's a Steppenwolf song. It's never too late to start all over again.
What song was that?
That's what it's called.
Oh,
I think it's called.
Sorry, I only know Magic Carpet Ride. That's my Steppenwolf understanding.
The only reason I know that is because I have a Steppenwolf album. It's like a best of Steppenwolf album, and it's in the M56 CD changer, and it's been there for 15 years.
That is such an E39 M5 owner's CD.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like fucking Forrest Whitaker and Ghost Dog, like getting in that Lexus, and just that's the kind of shit that plays in that car. Anyway, you can correct your wrongs. I know it sucks. The sun goes down at 4:30 if you're working a normal like 8 to 5 job. It fucking sucks to come home and it's dark. Of course, you don't want to get up and go to the gym. You just want to sit on the couch, eat, and then be like, oh God, I got to make dinner that's actually healthy. That isn't just fucking pirate booty cheese puffs, but they are good.
Oh, and the train just passed by.
Nice. But that's all. Yeah, you can
always be better.
There's
always a way for you to be better.
Hey, and if better isn't possible, just stay the course.
Yeah,
it's cool. Get
help others get better.
You don't have to give 100%. You give 12. Give 12%.
I've been giving 12% for many years, and it's worked.
If you've got 12% in you, give 12%. That's all you need to do. You don't need to give more. And you know what? Maybe this year, 13.
Yeah,
it's your year, baby. 2025. Anyway, don't forget to respect the drive. We will see you in the next podcast, and I will see you in the next video. Talk to you soon. Bye.